The reports came in one after another. Colony 7, no response. Colony 9, communications offline. Colony 12, complete silence. Princess Lithera watched the map of their border territories turn red, sector by sector. Something was happening out there and no one could tell her what it was. Send reconnaissance ships, Emperor Vossakar ordered. I want to know what is causing these communication failures. But Lithera already knew. The humans were coming. They were already here. 2 days later, a message arrived from Merchant Station 41. It was a neutral trading post on the edge of Caltherian space. The message was chaotic, filled with screams and weapons fire. Then it cut off abruptly. What attacked the station? The Emperor demanded. The answer came from an unexpected source. A merchant ship that had been docked at the station managed to escape. They sent a full report with video footage. Lithera played it in the command center while her father watched. The footage showed the station's main trading floor. Hundreds of aliens moved about buying and selling goods. Caltheranes, Vrexians, Thulians, and dozens of other species. Everything was normal. Then alarms sounded. The view switched to external cameras. 8,000 Caltherian warships approached the station. It was an invasion force, one of their border fleets. They began attacking the station without warning. Why would our forces attack a neutral station? Lithera asked. Sorvek checked the records. That fleet was operating under Commander Kethvar. He believed the station was sheltering human spies. He decided to secure it by force. Fool, Emperor Voskar muttered. The footage continued. The Caltherian ships began their assault. The station's shields held for a while, but 8,000 warships were too many. The shields started to fail. Then something else appeared on the cameras. A single human ship. It was small, barely larger than a transport vessel. Lithera leaned forward, watching closely. The human ship broadcast a message. The translation appeared on screen. Caltherian forces, you are attacking a protected neutral zone. Stand down immediately. The Caltherian fleet ignored the warning. They continued their assault. What happened next occurred so fast that Lithera had to replay it 3 times to understand. The human ship opened fire. Bright blue energy weapons struck the Caltherian fleet with perfect accuracy. Ship after ship exploded or went dead in space. The human vessel moved through the formation like a blade through paper. But that was not the most shocking part. The footage showed the human ship opening its cargo bay. 50 figures in armor jumped out, using small rockets to propel themselves toward the station. They landed on the hull and entered through emergency airlocks. These were human marines. 50 of them. They came to defend the station against 8,000 Caltherian warriors who had already boarded. The internal station cameras captured what happened next. The Marines moved through the corridors in perfect formation. They encountered Caltherian soldiers at every turn. The battle should have been impossible. 8,000 against 50. But the humans fought like nothing Lithera had ever seen. They moved fast, but not frantically. They were calm. They called out to each other in steady voices, coordinating their movements. Their weapons fired with absolute precision. Every shot hit its target. Caltherian warriors fell by the dozens, by the hundreds. The Marines did not even seem worried. Lithera watched one Marine in particular. The name tag on his armor said Do-Hyun, Sergeant. He led a squad of 10 Marines through the station's main corridor. 200 Caltherian soldiers charged at them from ahead. Do-Hyun raised one hand, making a simple gesture. His squad spread out and opened fire. The corridor became a storm of energy blasts and explosions. But when the dust cleared, all 200 Caltheranes lay unconscious on the floor. Not dead. Unconscious. The Marines had used stunning weapons just like the scouts at the outpost. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 8,000 Caltherian warriors had been defeated. The Marines had 0 casualties. Not a single human had died. Only 5 were wounded, and they walked away on their own. The footage showed the aftermath. Marines moved through the station, checking on the civilians, making sure everyone was safe. One Marine stopped to help a frightened child, offering water and speaking in a gentle voice. Another Marine assisted medical teams with the wounded. Then Lithera heard something that made her blood freeze. 2 Marines stood together, removing their helmets. One was male, the other female. The female Marine's tag said Hana. That was boring, the male Marine said. 8,000 targets and we finished in 6 hours. I miss real combat, Hana laughed. Remember the Zorvan War? Now that was a fight. Those bugs actually made us work for it. Yeah, the male Marine agreed. I actually had to reload twice. Best deployment ever. They laughed together and moved on. Lithera stopped the footage. Her hands trembled. These humans had fought 8,000 Caltherian warriors and found it boring. They missed real combat. They spoke of another war against something called Zorvans with fondness in their voices. What kind of species were these humans? What kind of warriors found a 6-hour battle against overwhelming numbers to be boring? She showed the footage to her father. Emperor Voskar watched in silence. When it ended, he sat back in his throne and closed all 3 eyes. These are their Marines, Lithera said quietly. The second tier. Father, we cannot fight them. We need to make peace immediately. For the first time, Emperor Voskar looked old. His proud shoulders slumped. His forearms hung limply at his sides. Send the envoy, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Send it now. Offer peace. Offer reparations. Offer whatever they want. We cannot fight this enemy. The fastest diplomatic ship in the Caltherian fleet was prepared. Ambassador Relthas, their most skilled negotiator, boarded with a full staff. They carried documents of peace, offers of payment, anything that might satisfy the humans. The ship launched that same day. It would take 3 days to reach human space. 3 days to hopefully prevent a war that Caltheria could not win. But the diplomatic ship never made it to human space. On the second day of travel, it encountered a human vessel at the edge of what had been Caltherian territory. The human ship was small, a corvette-class vessel. But Ambassador Relthas had learned his lesson. He knew that size did not matter when dealing with humans. The human ship broadcast a message. Caltherian vessel, you are entering human quarantine space. State your purpose. Quarantine space? When had this become human space? Relthas sent a reply quickly. We are a diplomatic mission. We seek peaceful negotiations with Earth Command. We wish to end hostilities. There was a pause. Then the human ship responded. Stand by. The Caltherian ship waited. 10 minutes passed. 20. Finally, another message came through. You are cleared to approach. Follow our navigation beacon. Do not deviate from the designated course. Any deviation will be considered a hostile act. The human corvette began moving and the Caltherian ship followed. Relthas felt relief wash through him. The humans were willing to talk. Perhaps peace was possible. They traveled for several hours following the beacon. The human corvette led them deeper into what had been neutral space. Relthas noticed that several of their border colonies were now behind them. When had humans taken control of this region? Finally, the human ship stopped and turned to face them. A communication request came through. Relthas accepted it, and a human face appeared on the screen. The human was young, perhaps 30 standard years. His face was calm and professional. The name tag on his uniform said, Sunwoo, Lieutenant. Behind him, Relthas could see other humans working at various stations. The corvette's crew was surprisingly small, perhaps 20 people operating a ship that would require 100 Caltheranes. Ambassador Relthas, Lieutenant Sunwoo said. His Caltherian pronunciation was perfect. Welcome. I have reviewed your diplomatic credentials. You are authorized to speak with Earth Command. Thank you, Lieutenant, Relthas said carefully. We wish to discuss peace terms and... Before we continue, Sunwoo interrupted politely. I need to make something clear to you. You are currently in human quarantine space. Your empire's border has been moved back by approximately 30 light years. This entire region is now under human military control. Relthas felt shock run through him. 30 light years? That represented dozens of colonies, hundreds of outposts. When did this happen? He asked. Over the past 10 days, Sunwoo replied. Since your attack on our scout unit, all Caltherian forces in this region have been neutralized and removed. Your colonies have been secured but not harmed. Civilians have been protected. We have established this quarantine zone as a buffer to prevent further hostilities. In 10 days? Relthas could not believe it. How? Lieutenant Sunwoo's expression did not change. Ambassador, you are here to discuss peace. That is good. The fleet arrives in 3 days. If you want to talk, I suggest you talk fast. Once the fleet arrives, the situation may become more complicated. What fleet? Relthas asked, though he feared the answer. The response fleet, Sunwoo said calmly. Earth Command is sending appropriate forces to address your attack on our scouts. They will arrive in 3 days. If you can negotiate a peace agreement before they arrive, that would be best for everyone. The fleet commanders have been given authority to take any actions they deem necessary. The great hall of the Caltherian palace sparkled with 1,000 lights. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting rainbow colors across the marble floors. Emperor Vossakar sat on his golden throne, his forearms spread wide in celebration. His purple skin gleamed under the lights, and his 3 eyes surveyed the crowd with satisfaction. Beside him stood his daughter, Princess Lithera, her silver robes flowing like water. Today was a day of victory. 3 days ago, their mighty fleet had crushed the human invaders. The filthy creatures had dared to enter Caltherian space, and now they were dead. All of them, bring forth the trophies. Emperor Voskar's voice boomed across the hall. 6 Caltherian warriors dragged large metal boxes into the center of the room. They opened them carefully, revealing strange equipment inside. The crowd gasped and whispered. These were human weapons and armor taken from the battlefield. Some pieces were scorched black from energy weapons. Others had holes torn through them. Fleet Commander Rethazul stepped forward. He was a massive Caltherian, nearly 8 feet tall with scars covering his arms. He had led the attack against the humans. Now he stood proud before his emperor. "My lord," Rethazul said, bowing deeply. The victory was complete. "We destroyed 5 human vessels. We killed approximately 200 human soldiers. Not a single one escaped." The crowd cheered. Princess Lithera watched silently. Her father clapped all 4 hands together, creating a thunderous sound that echoed through the hall. "Tell us of the battle, Commander," the Emperor said. "How did these humans fight?" Rethazul's expression changed. For a moment, something like fear crossed his face. Then he straightened his shoulders and spoke clearly. "They fought like demons, my lord. I have never seen anything like it. We sent 40,000 warriors against them. We deployed 25 warships. The battle lasted 14 hours. The hall fell quiet. Someone in the crowd whispered something. 40,000 warriors against 200 enemies? 25 warships against 5 small vessels? They were well trained," Rethzul continued quickly. "Their weapons were powerful. Every shot they fired hit its target. They never missed. They moved in perfect coordination. When we destroyed one of their ships, the others adjusted instantly. They covered each other. They fought to the last soldier. But we won," the Emperor declared loudly. "That is what matters. We crushed them. We showed these humans that Caltherian space is forbidden to them." More cheers erupted. Princess Lithera stepped down from the platform and walked toward the captured equipment. Her guards followed her, but she waved them away. She wanted to see these items up close. The armor was strange. It was lighter than Caltherian armor, made of materials she did not recognize. The helmets had dark visors that showed nothing. The weapons were compact but clearly powerful. She picked up a helmet and turned it over in her hands. Then she saw something. On the side of the helmet there were markings. Human writing. She had studied their language as part of her diplomatic training. She read the words slowly. 3rd Recon, Terra Forward Scouts, Training Battalion. Training Battalion. Lithera felt a cold sensation in her chest. She looked at the other pieces of equipment. They all had similar markings: Recon, Scouts, Training. "Father," she called out. Her voice was calm, but inside she felt uncertain. Emperor Vossakar looked at her. "Yes, daughter. What do these markings mean?" She held up the helmet. The Emperor gestured to his chief intelligence officer, a thin Caltherian named Sorvek. The officer hurried over and examined the helmet. "Military designations, Your Highness," Sorvek said dismissively. "All soldiers wear such markings. It means nothing special." "But what is a scout?" Lithera asked. "And what is a training battalion?" Sorvek waved one hand. "Jargon, Princess. Military talk. Perhaps it is their unit name. Perhaps it is where they came from. It does not matter. They are dead now." Lithera wanted to press further, but the celebration continued around her. Musicians began to play. Servants brought food and drink. The warriors who had fought in the battle were honored one by one. The Emperor gave medals and prizes, but Lithera could not stop thinking about those words. Scouts, training. Something felt wrong. Later that night, after the celebration ended, Lithera sat in the intelligence chamber with Sorvek. Screens covered the walls showing data from the battle. Numbers and graphs filled the displays. "Show me the human transmissions," she said. Sorvek looked uncomfortable. "Princess, there is nothing important." "Show me." The intelligence officer sighed and pulled up a file. "We intercepted one transmission during the battle. It was sent from one of the human ships before we destroyed it. We could not decode most of it. Their encryption is very strong. Play it, Lithra commanded. Static filled the room. Then a human voice spoke. It was calm, almost emotionless. The words were broken up by interference, but 2 words came through clearly. Scouts lost, dispatching. Then nothing but static. What does it mean? Lithra asked. Dispatching what? Sorvek shrugged with all 4 arms. Probably reinforcements that never arrived. We have seen no other human ships in our space. The transmission likely failed to reach anyone. Princess, you worry too much. We won a great victory. Lithra stared at the screen. Those 2 words repeated in her mind. Scouts lost. Dispatching. If the humans they killed were scouts, what were they scouting for? And if the transmission said dispatching, did that mean more humans were coming? How many more? She thought about the battle again. 40,000 Caltherian warriors, 25 warships, 14 hours of combat, all to kill 200 humans. 200 scouts, 200 soldiers from a training battalion. Sorvek, she said quietly, I want you to gather all information we have about human military structure. I want to know how they organize their forces. I want to know what a scout is. I want to know everything. The intelligence officer bowed. As you wish, Princess. But it will take time. We know very little about humans. They are far from our space. We have had minimal contact with them. Then start now, Lithra said. Work through the night if you must. After Sorvek left, Lithra remained alone in the chamber. She looked at the statistics on the screen. The casualty numbers glowed in red light. 40,000 Caltheranes sent to battle. Nearly 3,000 had died. 8,000 were wounded, against 200 human scouts. Princess Lithra had a terrible feeling in her chest. It was a feeling she had never experienced before. It took her several minutes to recognize what it was. Fear. What had they done? What had her people started? The celebration in the Great Hall seemed very far away now. The cheers and music faded from memory. All she could hear was that human voice, calm and cold through the static. Scouts lost. Dispatching. She wondered what was coming. She wondered if her people had any idea what they had just invited into their space. Most of all, she wondered if it was already too late to stop it. 1 week had passed since the celebration. Princess Lithra had barely slept. She spent every moment in the intelligence chamber, searching through data about humans. What she found was not much. The humans were far away. They kept to themselves. Most alien species knew almost nothing about them, but then everything changed. The alarm sounded at midnight. Lithra ran from her chambers to the command center. Officers rushed back and forth, shouting orders. Emperor Voskar arrived moments later, his robes hastily thrown on. What is happening? He demanded. Our outpost on the border moon of Kelvar, an officer reported. It has been breached. Breached? The Emperor's 3 eyes widened. That is impossible. That outpost has defenses that could stop an army. How many attackers? The officer checked his display. His hands shook. According to the sensors before they went offline, 8. 8? Emperor Voskar laughed. 8 attackers breached our outpost? This is a joke. No joke, my lord. The officer's voice was grim. They were inside for 14 minutes. Then they left. The garrison of 500 soldiers could not stop them. They are all alive but unconscious. The attackers used some kind of stunning technology. Lithra felt her blood run cold. 8 attackers. 14 minutes. 500 trained soldiers defeated without a single death. Did we get any images? She asked. Yes, Princess. The security cameras captured everything. They watched the footage in silence. The display showed the outpost's main corridor. Everything was quiet. Then, without warning, 8 figures appeared. They moved so fast the cameras barely tracked them. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets. These were humans. Lithra watched as they moved through the outpost like water flowing around rocks. Caltherian soldiers tried to stop them. Energy weapons fired. Explosives detonated. Nothing worked. The humans moved faster than the eye could follow. They disabled every soldier they encountered with quick, precise strikes. No one died. No one was seriously injured. But in 14 minutes, 500 warriors lay unconscious on the floor. The humans reached the central computer core. One of them, smaller than the others, approached the main terminal. Female, Lithra guessed from the body shape. The human's hands moved over the controls faster than any Caltherian could manage. Then she did something strange. She inserted a data chip into the system and turned to face the camera. She stood there for 5 seconds as if she wanted them to see her clearly. Then the humans vanished. The footage showed them leaving the same way they came, fast, silent, perfect. What did she put in our system? Emperor Voskar demanded. We do not know, my lord, Sorvek said nervously. Our technicians are examining it now. It could be a virus. It could be a weapon. We are being very careful. Hours passed. Lithra remained in the command center, waiting. Her father paced back and forth, angry and confused. Finally, Sorvek returned. We have decoded it, my lord. His voice was strange. It is not a weapon, it is a gift. A gift? The Emperor stopped pacing. What kind of gift? A complete translation guide for human language. And a message. They wanted us to understand it clearly. Play the message, Lithra said. The screen changed. Words appeared in perfect Caltherian script. A human voice read them aloud. The voice was professional, calm, and cold. To the Caltherian Empire, we are Earth Command, governing body of human military forces. 1 week ago, you attacked and killed members of our 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion Training Division. These were scouts. They were children on their first deployment mission. Their average age was 19 standard years. These scouts were armed with training equipment and limited ammunition. They had no heavy weapons, no reinforcements, no support vessels. They were alone. You sent 40,000 warriors and 25 warships to kill them. This message is a courtesy. We are providing you with translation capabilities so that future communications will be clear. We are also dispatching appropriate forces to address this situation. This is your only warning. The message ended. Silence filled the command center. Emperor Voskar was the first to speak. This is psychological warfare. They are trying to frighten us. Children? Training equipment? They lie to make us doubt our victory. But Lithra was not so sure. She thought about the 8 humans who had breached their outpost. They had moved like ghosts. They had defeated 500 soldiers in 14 minutes. And according to the message, scouts were the lowest level of human military. Sorvek, she said quietly, use the translation guide. Search all available data about human military structure. I want to know how they organize their forces. The intelligence officer worked through the night. Lithra sat beside him, reading every piece of information they could find. Much of it came from neutral trading species who had dealt with humans. Some came from old diplomatic records. Piece by piece, a picture formed, and that picture terrified her. Sorvek created a chart on the main display. Princess, I have found references to human military hierarchy. It appears they have multiple tiers of forces. The chart showed 7 levels. At the bottom, the lowest tier, it said Scout Forces, Reconnaissance and Exploration. That is what we fought, Lithra whispered. Above, that Marine Corps, Rapid Response and Planetary Defense. Above, that Orbital Guard, Ship Defense and Boarding Operations. Above, that Special Forces, High-Value Target Operations. Above, that Dreadborn, Heavy Combat Infantry. Above that, Titan. Corp, Elite Heavy Infantry. And at the very top, Omega Division. Classification unknown. Lithra stared at the chart. 7 tiers. They had fought the first tier. The lowest level. The Scouts. And it had cost them 3,000 dead and 8,000 wounded. What are the numbers? She asked. How many of each type? Sorvek pulled up more data. The information is incomplete, Princess. But according to these sources, humans have approximately 5 million scout forces, 20 million Marines, 10 million orbital guard, 2 million special forces. Numbers for the higher tiers are uncertain. One source claims 50 million Titan Corps soldiers, but that seems impossible. 50 million. 50 million of their elite heavy infantry. Lithra did not want to believe it. She took the data and went to her father's private chambers. He was still awake, staring out the window at the stars. Father, I must show you something. She presented everything. The chart, the numbers, the descriptions she had found. Emperor Voskar listened, but his expression grew harder with each word. You believe this? He asked when she finished. I do not want to believe it, Lithra said honestly. But father, we saw what 8 humans did to our outpost. 8. If those were scouts or perhaps Marines, what would their special forces do? What would their Titan Corps do? This information could be false, the Emperor said. Propaganda, exaggeration. Humans could be spreading these lies to make themselves seem more dangerous than they are. Then explain the outpost, Lithera challenged. Explain how 8 attackers defeated 500 of our warriors in 14 minutes. Emperor Vossakar had no answer. He turned back to the window. Send an envoy, he finally said. We will attempt to negotiate. If these humans want peace, we will give them peace. If they want reparations, we will pay. But I do not believe we are in danger. We are the Caltherian Empire. We have ruled this sector for 1,000 years. Lithera wanted to argue. She wanted to make him see the truth. But she knew her father. He was proud. He would not admit fear. Yes, father, she said quietly. As she left his chambers, she looked at her datapad once more. The chart glowed in the darkness. 7 tiers. They had fought the first tier. And somewhere out there in the black void of space, the humans were coming. Not scouts this time. Not trainees. The message had said appropriate forces. Lithera wondered what that meant. She wondered what appropriate looked like to a species that sent children with training equipment into danger and expected them to survive. Most of all, she wondered if her people would survive what was coming. The celebration from a week ago seemed like a distant dream now. They had been so happy, so proud of their victory. They had not known what they had really done. They had not known that they had only fought the weakest humans had to offer. Now they were about to find out the truth. And Lithera suspected that truth would be written in fire and blood. Princess Lithera insisted on joining the diplomatic mission. Her father protested, but she stood firm. If the Caltherian Empire was going to negotiate with humans, she needed to see them herself. She needed to understand what they were facing. The shuttle ride to the meeting point took 6 hours. Lithera spent the time reviewing everything they knew about humans. It was still not much, but every piece of information painted the same picture. These were not ordinary warriors. These were survivors of a brutal world who had turned their survival instincts into military perfection. When they arrived, Lithera looked through the viewport and gasped. The human fleet waited ahead of them. Ships filled the space as far as her eyes could see. She started counting, but gave up after reaching 300. And these were just the ships she could see. There might be more beyond her view. All ships appear identical. Ambassador Relthus noted nervously. Mid-sized cruisers approximately 500 meters in length. 500 meters. That was half the size of a Caltherian battleship. But there were so many of them, and they were arranged in perfect formation, spaced evenly, a display of absolute coordination. We are receiving a docking request, the pilot said. They are directing us to the flagship, designated Indomitable. The Indomitable looked exactly like the other ships. Lithera had expected something massive, something impressive. But this vessel was just another cruiser in the formation. As they approached, she noticed how clean it was. No battle damage, no wear marks. It looked fresh from construction. They docked and the airlock opened. 2 human marines waited on the other side. They wore light armor and carried weapons, but their posture was relaxed. Professional, but not threatening. Ambassador Relthas, Princess Lithera, one marine said, bowing slightly. Welcome to the Indomitable. Admiral Nari is expecting you. Please follow us. They walked through the ship's corridors. Lithera watched everything carefully. The corridors were narrower than Caltherian ships. The lighting was softer. But what shocked her most was the crew size. They passed only a handful of humans as they walked. Where were all the workers? Where were the soldiers? How many crew members serve on this ship? She asked. 500 personnel, Princess, the Marine replied. Standard complement for a cruiser of this class. 500? Lithera almost stopped walking. A Caltherian ship this size needed at least 10,000 crew members. How could 500 humans operate a warship? They reached the bridge. The doors opened and Lithera saw the command center. It was smaller than she expected. 20 humans worked at various stations. Screens covered the walls showing data and ship positions. Everything was organized and efficient. In the center stood a woman in a dark blue uniform. She was perhaps 40 standard years old with short black hair and calm eyes. Her uniform had several badges and insignia that meant nothing to Lithera. Ambassador Princess, the woman said, stepping forward. I am Fleet Admiral Nari, commander of the Earth Response Fleet. Welcome. Her voice was pleasant but carried absolute authority. Lithera could feel the power behind those calm words. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Admiral, Ambassador Relta said, bowing deeply. We come in peace. We wish to end hostilities and, before we discuss terms, Admiral Nari interrupted gently. Perhaps I should show you something. Help you understand the situation better. Please follow me. She led them to an observation deck. The wall was transparent, showing the full view of space outside. The entire human fleet spread out before them, 300 identical cruisers arranged in perfect geometric patterns. This is beautiful, Lithera said honestly. Your fleet is very organized. This is not our fleet, Admiral Nari said quietly. This is a response detachment. 1/10 of the actual response force. The rest are positioned throughout the region. 1/10? Lithera felt weak. 3,000 ships? 3,000 ships just to deal with the Caltherian Empire. I wanted to show you this, Nari continued, because you need to understand something important. You are lucky. Very lucky, lucky? Relthus asked. I do not understand. The Titan Corps wanted to handle this personally, Nari explained. When they heard that scout trainees had been killed, they were angry. Very angry. It took considerable effort from Earth Command to convince them to stand down. Lithera remembered the chart she had seen. Titan Corps, the 6th tier. Heavy elite infantry. Why did they stand down? She asked. Admiral Nari looked at her. There was something in those calm eyes. Something that might have been sympathy. Because I convinced them that you did not know, Nari said. I told them that you did not understand what you had done, that you thought you were fighting soldiers, not children. The Titan Corps does not like killing people who act out of ignorance. They prefer enemies who know what they are doing. Children, that word again. The message had said the scouts were 19 years old. Lithera was 50 years old, still considered young by Caltherian standards. To humans, 19 was a child. Let me show you how we operate, Nari said, gesturing to the bridge. That station there is navigation. 1 person. That station is weapons control. 2 people. That station manages shields and power. 3 people. 20 humans operate this entire warship, Princess. Do you know why? Lithera shook her head. Because we have to, Nari said simply. Humans are few compared to other species. We number about 30 billion in total. Other empires have populations in the hundreds of billions. So we adapted. We made ourselves efficient. We made ourselves deadly. We had to, or we would have been destroyed long ago. A young human approached them. She wore a different uniform, dark gray instead of blue. Her tag said, Bora, Specialist Orbital Guard. Admiral, the supply ships have arrived, Bora reported. All vessels are fully stocked. Thank you, Specialist, Nari said. Then she turned to Lithera. Specialist Bora is from our Orbital Guard, the 3rd tier. She has been with us for 8 years. Lithera looked at Bora. The woman was young, perhaps 25. 8 years of service meant she had joined at 17. What do you do in the Orbital Guard? Lithera asked. Bora smiled. Ship defense and boarding operations, Princess. We keep our vessels safe and take enemy vessels when needed. It is good work. Keeps me sharp between real wars. Real wars? Lithera repeated. The Specialist refers to large-scale conflicts, Admiral Nari explained. Wars against major threats. The last one was the Zorvan War, 5 years ago. Before that, the Kellian expansion. Before that, the Hive Worlds conflict. These were names Lithera had never heard. Wars that humanity had fought against unknown species. How many enemies had humans faced? How many battles had they won? We have faced many threats, Princess. Nari continued, reading her expression. Most of them were far more dangerous than your empire. The Zorvans, for example. They were a species of insectoid warriors, each one 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor. They bred in billions. They consumed everything in their path. The war against them lasted 3 years and cost us 50 million casualties. 50 million casualties. And the humans had won. How did you defeat them? Lithera asked. We destroyed their homeworld, Bora said casually. Cut off the head, the body dies. It was necessary. The casual way she said it chilled Lithera. They destroyed an entire world, and this young woman spoke of it like it was just another job. Admiral Nari gestured for them to sit at a conference table. She pulled up a holographic display. It showed the Caltherian Empire and surrounding space. Now let me explain your situation, Nari said. 2 weeks ago, your fleet attacked our scouts. These were not soldiers, Ambassador. These were trainees on their qualifying mission. They had training equipment, limited ammunition, no reinforcements. They were learning. They were children. We did not know, Relta said desperately. We thought, I know, Nari interrupted. That is why we are having this conversation instead of simply taking action. You acted out of ignorance, not malice, but you still killed 200 young humans, 200 children who will never go home. Lithra felt shame wash through her. They had celebrated those deaths. They had displayed the captured equipment like trophies. They had been so proud. I need you to understand something else, Nari continued. Standard Earth military protocol is a 10-to-1 engagement ratio. 10 human soldiers for every 100 enemies. That is our standard deployment. You sent 40,000 warriors against 200 scouts. A ratio of 200 to 1. That is when we realized you had no idea what you were fighting. The hologram changed. It showed a human soldier. But this was unlike anything Lithra had seen before. The figure stood 8 feet tall in massive armor. The suit was black and silver, covered in weapons and equipment. The helmet was shaped like a skull with glowing red eyes. This is a Titan Corps soldier, Nari said quietly. Our heavy elite infantry. They are our answer to impossible situations. Each Titan carries enough firepower to destroy a building. They wear armor that can withstand direct hits from ship-grade weapons. They train for 10 years before deployment. They are the best warriors humanity can produce. Lithra stared at the hologram. This was what a real human warrior looked like. Not the scouts, not even the Marines. How many? She whispered. 50 million, Admiral Nari said. Give or take a few million depending on current deployment rotations. The throne room of the Caltherian palace looked different than it had 3 weeks ago. The celebration decorations were gone. The captured human equipment had been removed. In their place stood a simple table with chairs on either side. This was not a day for celebration. This was a day for humility. Emperor Voskar sat at one side of the table. He looked older now, his purple skin duller, his shoulders bent. Princess Lithra stood beside him, her silver robes replaced with simpler gray ones. Ambassador Relthus and several other officials waited nearby. Across from them sat Admiral Nari and her delegation. The Admiral wore her formal uniform, dark blue with silver insignia. Next to her sat diplomats and legal experts who had worked through the night on the treaty documents. But it was the 3 humans standing behind Admiral Nari who drew everyone's attention. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. No weapons were visible, but everyone knew they were armed. Their helmets covered their faces. They stood perfectly still like statues. Who are they? Lithra had asked quietly when the humans first arrived. Special Forces. Admiral Nari had replied. Commander Taiyang and operators Minji and Junho. They are here for security purposes only. Security. 3 humans to protect their admiral in a palace filled with thousands of Caltherian guards. The message was clear. These 3 humans considered themselves more than capable of handling any threat. Lithra had watched them since they arrived. They moved with impossible grace. Their helmets turned constantly, observing everything. She realized with horror that they were mapping the entire fortress. Every corridor, every room, every defensive position. They were learning the palace layout as casually as someone might study a painting. The Caltherian royal guards watched the humans nervously. They had seen the reports. They knew what human soldiers could do. No one wanted to test whether these 3 could actually defeat thousands of guards. Everyone suspected they could. Shall we begin? Admiral Nari asked politely. Emperor Voskar nodded. His 4 hands shook slightly as he reached for the treaty documents. The terms were harsh but not cruel. The Caltherian Empire would pay reparations to the families of the fallen scouts. They would cede control of the buffer zone that humans had already taken. They would allow human observers at all military installations near human space. They would sign a non-aggression pact lasting 50 years. In return, humanity would not destroy the Caltherian Empire. They would not seek revenge. They would not deploy the Titan Corps or any other heavy forces. The war would end today. Emperor Voskar read through each term. He signed his name on every page. He did it without argument, without trying to negotiate. He understood that there was nothing to negotiate. Humanity held all the power. The Caltherians were lucky to be offered peace at all. When the signing was complete, Admiral Nari stood and offered her hand. The Emperor took it, and they shook in the human custom of agreement. The past is behind us, Admiral Nari said. What matters now is the future. We hope this can be the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples. As do we, Emperor Voskar replied. Though his voice was hollow, the ceremony ended. Diplomats and officials began discussing implementation details. The formal part was over, but Lithra noticed one of the humans leaving the throne room. She recognized the armor markings. Scout Division. She followed him into the palace gardens. The human stood by a fountain, his helmet removed now. He was young, perhaps 25 standard years. His face was handsome but tired. His eyes held a sadness that made Lithra's heart ache. Captain Jiho, she said softly. She had learned his name from the documentation. May I speak with you? The human turned and smiled politely. Of course, Princess Lithra. How may I help you? You are a scout captain, she said. Like the ones we killed. Like the unit we destroyed. Yes, Jiho replied. I was promoted after the incident. I was their commanding officer. I was supposed to be with them, but I had been called back for a training review. They went out without me. Lithra felt her throat tighten. I am sorry. I know that means nothing, but I am sorry. It means something, Jiho said gently. Apologies always mean something. They do not change what happened, but they acknowledge it. That is important. They stood in silence for a moment. The fountain bubbled quietly. Birds sang in the trees. It was peaceful here, far from the politics and negotiations. How do you do it? Lithra asked suddenly. How do humans become so deadly? We have been warriors for 1,000 years, but our best soldiers cannot match your scouts. Your children, how? Jiho looked at the fountain, thinking. We are not deadly, Princess. Not naturally. We are survivors. Do you know about Earth? Our homeworld? Very little, Lithra admitted. Earth is beautiful, Jiho said. But it is also cruel. For 200,000 years, our planet tried to kill us. Ice ages that covered continents. Predators that hunted us. Diseases that wiped out entire populations. Droughts, floods, earthquakes, volcanoes. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Most species would have died, but humans did not die. We adapted. We survived. He picked up a small stone and tossed it into the fountain. We learned to work together because alone we died. We learned to make weapons because we had no claws or fangs. We learned to think ahead because the present was always trying to kill us. Generation after generation. Only the smartest and strongest survived. After 200,000 years of that, what do you think it created? Warriors, Lithra whispered. No, Jiho corrected. Survivors. Warriors fight. Survivors do whatever is necessary to continue living. We do not enjoy war, Princess, but we are very, very good at surviving, and sometimes survival requires fighting. Lithra thought about the scouts. 19 years old. Children, really. They had survived 200,000 years of evolution that weeded out weakness. They had been trained by a species that turned survival into an art form. The unit we killed, she said quietly. Did you know them well? Gio's expression changed. Pain flashed across his face. Yes, I trained most of them personally. 2 of them were my younger siblings, Hyun and Aryam. They were twins, 18 years old. It was their first mission. Lithra felt tears in her eyes. She was crying for humans, for enemies, for people her empire had killed without understanding what they were doing. I am so sorry, she said again. So very sorry. I know, Jiho said. And I forgive you. Not because I do not care that they died, but because I know you did not understand. You thought you were fighting soldiers. You thought it was a fair battle. You were wrong, but you did not know you were wrong. How can you be so calm? Lithra asked. How can you forgive? Because anger does not bring them back, Jiho replied. And because their deaths have meaning now. This piece is their legacy. They died, but their deaths created something good. That is enough. That has to be enough. He put his helmet back on. I should return to my duties. Thank you for speaking with me, Princess. It means more than you know. He walked away, leaving Lithra alone by the fountain. She stood there for a long time, thinking about everything she had learned. About humanity. About survival. About the terrible mistake her people had made. Later that day, she sat in the intelligence chamber with Sorvek. They were reviewing files about Earth, about human history. Admiral Nari had provided them with extensive documentation. So you understand, she had said. So this never happens again. The files contained information about Earth's history. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Predators that hunted early humans. Diseases that killed millions. Natural disasters that destroyed civilizations. And through it all, humans survived. Then came the wars. Humans fighting other humans. World War I, World War II. Conflicts that killed tens of millions but somehow made humanity stronger. They learned. They adapted. They survived. Look at this, Sorvek said, pointing to a file. The human body is weak compared to most species. They have no natural armor, no claws, no venom. They are slow runners. They cannot see well in darkness. By all rights, they should have been prey animals. But they are not, Lithra said. No, Sorvek agreed. They are apex predators. They made themselves that way through intelligence and determination. They turned every weakness into strength. They cannot run fast, so they learned to run long distances and tire out their prey. They cannot see in darkness, so they created artificial light. They have no claws, so they made weapons. Lithra looked at the data. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest. They were not the most numerous. But they were perhaps the most dangerous. They did not conquer their world, she said softly. They survived it. And it made them unkillable. What do we do now? Sorvek asked. We learn, Lithra replied. We become their friends. And we make sure everyone else knows what we learned. Over the following months, the Caltherian Empire kept its word. Reparations were paid. The buffer zone was maintained. Human observers took their positions at military installations. And slowly, carefully, friendship began to grow. Caltherian officers trained with human instructors. They learned human tactics, human strategies. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges began. Princess Lithra herself spent time on Earth, walking the streets of human cities, learning about their history firsthand. And the Caltherian Empire began to spread a message throughout the galaxy.